I was able to quit my job, never work again, and never run out of money. How did I do it? I learned about something called the 4% rule, and now I'm going to teach it to you. Everybody wants to know the magic number, the one that lets you quit your job, shut off the alarm clock forever, and finally take back control of your life. For years, I thought about this number, but it always felt like some kind of mythical, unobtainable thing, like a phone number with just way too many digits. But then I finally sat down and calculated my FIRE number, my financial independence retire early number. And it's $950,000. Hi, I'm Emily, your big sister in finance and the founder of Soro, where we make personal finance clear, relatable, and actually useful for all of us figuring out life and money together. If this is something you're into, then hit the like and subscribe button and welcome to Soro. Now, that number might seem huge to you, or who knows, maybe it seems surprisingly small, but that's not what shocked me. The part that really blew my mind is that to be completely financially free forever, I only need my investments to make about $104 a day. And when you put it that way, this massive, scary number suddenly feels real. It feels possible. The math to get here is shockingly simple and it pulls back the curtain on a reality about financial freedom that is way more achievable than most people think. It's a reality that the traditional financial world, with its whole retire at 67 plan, doesn't really want you to focus on. So today, I'm showing you everything. We're going to find your exact number, and I'm going to reveal the single most important truth I learned doing this. A truth that honestly changes everything. Let's just get right into it. The entire idea of a FIRE number, the very foundation of financial independence retire early movement, boils down to one piece of math. It's called the 25X rule. You figure out your desired annual spending in retirement, you multiply it by 25, and that's it. That's your number. So if you think you'll need $40,000 a year to live your life, you multiply that by 25 and your FIRE number is a cool $1 million. If you can live on 36,000 a year, your number drops to 900,000. And if you're living large at 100 grand a year, your target is 2.5 million. I could almost end the video right there. That's the secret. But that would be a huge disservice because that simple multiplication is both the starting line and the finish line. It's the target. But understanding why it's the target, where that number 25 even comes from, and how you can actually make it smaller and more obtainable, that's where the real power is. That's how you turn this from a daydream to an actual life plan. And before we dive in, just a quick heads up, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. This is all for informational and educational purposes only. My goal is to empower you with the same tools I used so you can start building your own path forward. Okay, so the formula is simple. The annual expenses times 25. The tricky part, the piece of the puzzle that only you can solve, is your annual expenses. And I'll be honest, this is the hardest and most important part of the whole thing. Getting this wrong is like putting the wrong address in your GPS. Sure, you'll be moving and making progress, but you'll end up in the totally wrong city. So, most people, if you ask them what they spend in a year, they just guess. They'll take their rent, maybe their car payment, multiply it out, and call it a day. They completely forget about the $1,000 car repair that popped up in May, the holiday gifts in December, annual insurance bills, or the fact that their grocery spending is never the same from month to month. To find your real annual expenses, you have to become a financial detective just for a little while. Track every single dollar, every coffee, every subscription you forgot you were paying for, every late night pizza, every single dollar. Use a budgeting app, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. Do this religiously for at least 3 to 6 months just to get a solid, accurate average. You need to break it all down. First, your big fixed costs: housing, your mortgage or rent, transportation, so car payment, insurance, gas, you name it, and your utilities, so power, water, internet. These are usually pretty stable. All right, next up, the wobbly but essential costs. So, groceries is going to be the big one here. This can fluctuate like crazy if you're not paying attention. And then there's healthcare, not just your monthly premiums, but also copays and anything else you may pay out of pocket. For early retirees, this is going to be a huge one since you might not have your company plan anymore. And then comes the fun stuff, discretionary spending. This is your lifestyle. So, restaurants, travel, hobbies, Netflix, shopping. This is also the category where you're going to find the most room to optimize. The point isn't to force yourself into a life of misery and extreme frugality, unless that's what you're aiming for, then it's called lean fire. The real goal is to be intentional. Are you spending money on things that actually make you happy, or is your money just disappearing? Finally, you have to account for all the things that we all forget: annual subscriptions, property taxes, home and auto maintenance, gifts. These surprise expenses aren't surprises at all, they're just infrequent. And they have to be in your annual number. Once you have all this detailed mapped out of your spending, you have to do one more thing: project it into the future. How is this going to change when you're retired? Your commuting costs might vanish. You might pay off your mortgage. Awesome. But your travel budget might triple. Your healthcare costs will almost certainly go up. And you need to build a realistic picture of your retirement spending, not just your current spending. So that's the number actually that really matters. So getting it right is the foundation of your entire financial future. No pressure. So just spend the time to get it right. Okay, so now that you have your most important number, your true annual expenses, let's circle back to that magic multiplier, 25. Where does that come from? It's not just some random number, it's actually the inverse of another, even more famous number in the retirement world: 4%. This is known as the 4% safe withdrawal rate. The big idea is that you can safely withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio in your first year of retirement, adjust that amount for inflation every year after, and have a very low risk of ever running out of money. So think about it. If you can live off 4% of your nest egg, that means your total nest egg needs to be 100 divided by 4, which equals 25. So annual expenses times 25. The math checks out. But is the 4% rule really safe? This rule came from some game changing research back in the 90s. The most famous was a 1998 paper from three finance professors at Trinity University, which everyone now just calls the Trinity Study. They basically wanted to answer one question: looking back at history, what withdrawal rate would have survived any 30-year period? They back tested different portfolios with different mixes of stocks and bonds against every 30-year time frame they could, starting in 1925. And what they found was that a portfolio with at least 50% stocks had an incredibly high success rate, often 95 to 100%, when using the 4% withdrawal rate that was adjusted for inflation. In fact, in most cases, people have ended up with more money than they started with, even after 30 years of spending and not contributing to it. This was revolutionary. It shifted the whole conversation from just saving a giant pile of cash to building an investment machine that could, in theory, pay you forever. A financial planner named Bill Benning did similar work and is often called the father of the 4% rule, and he landed on a very similar conclusion. But, and this is a big but, it's important to know the limits here. The study was based on a traditional 30-year retirement. If you're retiring at 40, you might be looking at a 50 or 60-year retirement. And you know the drill: a study used historical data, and past performance is no guarantee of future results. We're facing new economic challenges that challenge the original fire followers of the 2010s didn't have to worry about in quite the same way. So, this has sparked a huge debate recently. Is the 4% rule dead? The core idea is definitely not. Your money needs to work for you, but that specific number, 4%, might need a little tweaking depending on you and your tolerance risk. And that brings us to the next step. So, the 25x rule is a fantastic starting point. It's the baseline, but personal finance is, well, personal. You're not going to have historical average. You're going to have your own goals, your own timelines, and your own comfort level with risk. And this is where you graduate from the simple rule of thumb and start building a plan that's built for you. And you do that by tweaking your withdrawal rate. So, first, let's talk about playing it safe. The single biggest fear for an early retiree is something called sequence of returns risk. It's a fancy term for a simple nightmare. A huge market crash happens in the first couple years after you retire. If your portfolio gets hammered right after you stop working and then you keep withdrawing the same amount, you're forced to sell your investments at rock bottom prices, which dramatically increases the chance that you're going to run out of money. So, to guard against this, a lot of people, especially those planning for a super long retirement, go with a more conservative withdrawal rate like 3.5% or even 3%. Now, 3.5 doesn't sound like that much different from 4%, but check out the math. To find your new multiplier, you divide 100 by 3, or 3.5. It's about 28 and a half. So your new fire number is your annual expenses times 28.5. If you drop to a 3% rate, your multiplier becomes 33. And all of a sudden, that person with 40,000 in expenses doesn't need a million, they need $1.32 million. It's a big jump, but if you have a higher degree of certainty and a peace of mind, then 3.5% shows nearly a 100% success rate over 50-year timelines in the historical models. In fact, given recent inflation and the market forecast for 2025, some prominent analysts, like those at Morningstar, have suggested nudging that rate down somewhere to the 3.3 to 3.8% range just to be extra safe. Okay, but what about the other way? Can you be more aggressive? Of course, maybe a 5% withdrawal rate is right for you. A 5% rate means your multiplier is only 20. So the person needing 40,000 a year now only needs to save 800,000 instead of $1 million. That makes financial independence feel a whole lot closer. So, who should even consider this? A 5% rate is for people who have flexibility. Maybe you're barista fire and you plan on working a low stress part time job to cover some bills. Or maybe you have that flexible budget and you're totally willing to spend less when the market takes a dive. If you can cut your spending down from 40,000 a year down to $30,000 for a year or two, you give your portfolio a chance to breathe, recover, and make a higher withdrawal rate much more sustainable. Even the original 4% rule creator has said that some market conditions, new retirees could probably take out closer to 4.7%. The key is that a higher rate demands more attention and more flexibility in your spending. Your choice, 3%, 4%, 5%. It's all about personal risk tolerance that defines your fire number. So, do you want a financial fortress or are you okay with a more flexible game plan? Answering this is everything. Okay, so we've covered some pretty deep stuff here, from expense tracking to the weeds of withdrawal rates. Now you have the real tools to calculate the first draft of your fire number. If this is starting to click for you and you're getting some value of this, do me a quick favor, hit that like and subscribe button. This channel is all about making financial freedom accessible, and you won't want to miss the strategies we talk about every single week to get you there faster. Okay, so far we've been talking as if your investment portfolio is your only source of income in retirement. And for a lot of people, that's just not true. This is where your fire number can suddenly shrink in a way that honestly feels like a magic trick. Any income you have that isn't from your main portfolio drastically reduces the amount of work the portfolio has to do. So, this is the final crucial piece of the puzzle. Let's go back to our example. You need $40,000 a year. Using the basic 25x rule, that's $1 million target. But now let's say you have a small pension from an old job that pays you $10,000 a year. Or maybe you own a rental property that, after all expenses, nets you 10 grand a year. Or maybe you plan to have a fun side hustle like consulting or teaching guitar that brings in an easy $10,000 a year. That $10,000 outside of your income means your portfolio doesn't need to generate $40,000 anymore. It only has to cover the remaining $30,000. Now, let's do the math again. So, $30,000 times 25. Your new fire number isn't a million, it's 750,000. And just like that, you shaved $250,000 off of your target just by factoring in another income stream. So this is the whole idea behind concepts like barista fire and coast fire. Barista fire is when you have enough invested to cover most of your bills that you work a part-time job like at a coffee shop to cover the rest, and crucially to get the health insurance. Post fire is when you're saved enough money early on that if you never saved another dime, compound interest alone will coast your portfolio to a full retirement number by your 60s. That frees you up to take lower stress and more meaningful jobs without having to worry about saving. And think about all the possible sources of extra income. There's Social Security, pensions, rental income, dividends, part time work, royalties. Every single dollar from these sources is a dollar that your nest egg doesn't have to generate. So, this is why it's so helpful to see your fire number not as just one big pot of gold, but as a system you're building to generate income. The more diverse your income streams, the stronger your plan is, and often the lower target number becomes. And it's a total game changer. So let's go back to the beginning. My number, $950,000. And the surprise wasn't the number itself, but what I discovered on the way to finding it. When I first did the simple math, my number was way higher, closer to like 1.5 million. And it felt like a mountain I could see, but had no idea how to climb. But then I went through the exact steps that we just talked about. The first light bulb moment came from tracking my spending like a hawk. I found stealth subscriptions and just mindless spending that was adding up to thousands a year. By just being more intentional, my projected annual need for spending dropped a lot. And the second surprise was realizing the power of flexibility. I don't want to plan on just doing nothing. I love to create. I love working on projects I'm passionate about, like this YouTube channel. And by planning to bring in just a small amount of income from these passion projects, my fire number fell dramatically, right down to that $950,000 figure. It stopped being a retirement number and became a freedom number. And this is the most important thing I learned, the part that isn't what you think. The goal isn't just about fire, financial independence, retire early. For many of us, especially in 2025 and beyond, the goal is becoming fine. Financial independence, next endeavor. It's not about stopping where it's about having the power to choose your work. It's the freedom to walk away from a job that you hate, start a business without the crushing pressure of needing to pay your bills from day one, to spend a year traveling, or just dedicate your time to a cause you believe in. So, I have to ask, what does your number look like? And more importantly, what would you do with the freedom it gives you? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. As always, check us out on TikTok and Instagram for daily money tips to help you get on the right path towards financial freedom. Download the Ultimate Money Guide on our website. It is packed with all the essentials plus a workbook to help you feel confident in managing your money and mastering your finances for real. Don't forget to like and subscribe and drop a comment below. What's your fire number? I read every single comment and I am always there rooting for you. See you in the next video.